The monk and the renewal of the world. Monks are Christ's regular army, and that's why they are not paid. You see how many people who come to visit the holy mountain can never forget it. Wherever else they go, people will ask them for money, and so on. While on the holy mountain, all they have to do is present their visitor's permit, and after that they can go anywhere they wish without paying anything. They will eat free, they will sleep free. They find something different and are helped spiritually. When I was at the Calvary of the Precious Cross, someone came who had many problems. We spoke for an hour and a half. Then he took out a 500 drachma note. "What's that?" I asked him. "For a simple visit to the doctor, we pay at least this much," he told me. "Please forgive me. Is it perhaps not enough?" Some European community officials who came to the Holy Mountain after the last fire to assess the situation and see how they could help came by the Calvary. In our conversation, I told them, "We came here to give." Not to receive. This is the first time we have heard this. They told me and made a note of it immediately. We didn't become monks to receive material goods. We became monks to be able to give spiritual things without any material benefit. To be free of worldly cares so we can devote all of our time to our spiritual responsibilities. We left the world and went into the ascetic life for the love of Christ, to liberate ourselves from the passions and to liberate others as well. Our goal is to help people with our prayer and through our example, so that they may experience a spiritual rebirth. When someone leaves the world and enters the monastery, he or she becomes a spiritual father or a spiritual mother. When a young woman becomes a nun, she is married. She becomes the bride of Christ. A spiritual mother and helps people to be spiritually reborn. For example, with her prayer, she helps in the creation of good Christian families. But besides prayer, in certain circumstances, she must also offer assistance to people on the human level. Every good nun, besides the prayer she offers for people, provides great help with her manner. With the right approach, with a few words of spiritual guidance, she speaks to a pilgrim, to help him grasp the deeper meaning of life, or to a mother to encourage her. But for a nun to want to communicate with the world is useless, because such social contacts conflict with the spiritual laws, and as a result we suffer. As much as you can, seek to be active in obscurity. I make a comparison and it pains me. Some monks enjoy going to festivals, visits, and having spiritual friendships. When I am forced to go somewhere for spiritual work, I feel as if I am going to be tormented, and I see it as a waste of time. Geronda. When a nun is mature in years but immature spiritually, what is at fault? She doesn't examine herself carefully and doesn't do the necessary spiritual work. The problem begins from there. Let us assume that Christ didn't call someone to become a nun, and she stayed in the world and became a mother. Then she wouldn't have demands of others, but others would have demands of her. She would have given much and would have received much with a sacrifice she would have made. In the monastery, she must become a spiritual mother. Her mission is higher than a mother's. But now what happens? She enters the monastery at a young age, and if she doesn't make proper spiritual progress, continues to think of herself as a child. But she must realize that she isn't a child who thinks. We have our mother, we have our home, we are carefree, and I don't have a care in the world. She must give of herself and assist in the younger sisters, spiritual rebirth through her behavior, or help the pilgrims who come to the monastery, and sacrifice herself in everything, and she shall receive without asking. If a nun doesn't offer herself in this manner, everything is lost. She remains in an undeveloped state and wants constantly to take from both the young and the old, without giving of herself. She cultivates a sickly spirit and doesn't mature, because she doesn't offer herself to others. I see in some monks precisely the condition of a Bedouin, whom I hear known at Mount Sinai. He was 65 years old and said, I too have no father. I am an orphan. At 65 people have grandchildren. Two and three generations have passed, and he still says, I too have no father, and is still seeking a father's love. We monks, if we are not careful, can remain children, and this is bad. But if the nun or monk thinks what she or he would be doing in the world at her age, she could say, now I shouldn't be looking for human consolation. I must sacrifice myself and not make demands on others. Most of them come to the monastery at a young age, find spiritual parents, and may remain in a childish condition, with childish requests, whereas if they had stayed in the world, they would have become parents. In other words, they remain forever children, not in the good sense, but in the immature sense. They will grow old, but unless they exercise their mind, they may, for example, get excited over a piece of candy or a piece of clothing. There was an elderly monk on the holy mountain who used to say, my spiritual father got me a woolen sweater, and would show the sweater given to him by his elder. He was as excited as a small child whose mother has bought him a braided jacket. We must be children in our innocence, but not in our way of thinking. For otherwise, how will bravery enter into our life? How are we to acquire a manly and mature spirit? A monk, in order to progress spiritually, must soften his hard heart and try to make it like a mother's heart. Even a nun, in order to make spiritual progress, must acquire a little manliness.